The year was 1878, and the Owyhee Mountains of Idaho Territory still held the wild edge of the frontier. Gold strikes had come and gone like summer lightning. Silver City boomed then busted, leaving behind ghost shafts and broken dreams. What remained were the high valleys where hardy souls scratched out lives from sagebrush and basalt, raising cattle on open range and praying the winters didn't claim everything. Elara Voss was 19 when her father decided she was worth more as coin than company. Born lame in her left leg from a childhood fever, she walked with a halting grace that her stepmother called a curse on the household. Her father, a failing homesteader near the Snake River, had debts to the saloon keeper in Murphy and eyes on a younger daughter who could work without complaint. One crisp October morning, he loaded Elara onto a borrowed mule, tied her few possessions in a sack, and rode her up into the high country. "Silas Blackwood needs a wife," he told her, not meeting her eyes. "He's got land, a cabin, no kin. You'll cook, mend, keep house. He'll pay what I owe and more. Don't shame me, girl." Elara said nothing. She had learned silence young. The mule plodded through the canyons, past abandoned claims where wind whistled through broken timbers like ghosts mourning lost fortunes. They reached a narrow draw where a single cedar log cabin stood against a wall of red rock, smoke curling from its stone chimney. A tall man in a fringed buckskin coat stepped out, rifle in hand, beard black as raven feathers, eyes the color of storm clouds. Silas Blackwood was 34, a former trapper who'd turned to raising longhorns after the beaver trade dried up. He lived alone since his partner froze in the '73 blizzard, and the loneliness had carved deep lines around his mouth. He needed help, someone to tend the fire, mend harness, watch for wolves that prowled the ridges. He didn't need love. He needed labor. Elara's father took the money, $40 in silver eagles, and rode away without a backward glance. Silas watched the mule disappear down the trail, then turned to the girl standing crooked on the porch. "You're hurt," he said, nodding at her leg. "Not enough to stop me working," she replied, voice steady. He grunted. "Inside. Supper's cold." That first night set the pattern. Elara slept on a pallet by the hearth. Silas took the loft. She rose before dawn, stoked the fire, boiled coffee strong enough to float an axe head, fried salt pork and biscuits. Her hands, small but quick, learned the rhythm of the place, churning butter from the one milk cow, carting wool from the few sheep, sweeping the dirt floor until it shone like packed clay. Silas spoke little. He rode out at first light to check the herd, set iron traps for coyotes, hauled firewood. When he returned, he ate in silence, then sat by the fire carving spoons from mountain mahogany or mending gear. Elara mended his shirts, patched his coat, learned to read the weather in the way the pines bent. Weeks passed. Winter crept closer, the air sharpening like a blade. One evening Silas came in with blood on his sleeve. "Wolf pack hit the calves," he said. "Lost 3. More'll come." Elara bandaged the gash without asking. Her fingers were gentle, steady. He watched her, surprised. "You ain't useless," he muttered. She looked up. "My father said different." "Your father was a fool." The words hung between them. She finished the wrap and went back to the stove. By November the first real snow fell, dry, stinging flakes that drifted against the cabin walls. Silas rode higher each day, scouting for strays. Elara kept the place running, splitting kindling with an axe too heavy for most women, hauling water from the spring before it froze solid, rendering fat for soap. Her leg ached in the cold, but she never complained. Then came the day the sky turned violet. The great white silence descended without warning. The wind rose first, howling through the Owyhee canyons like 1,000 lost souls. Pines bent double. Snow fell in blinding sheets, piling against the door with rhythmic thuds. Inside, Elara felt the mountain's wrath shake the eaves. Silas had gone at dawn to check the high ridge deadfalls. Iron traps waited to crush wolves that had been taking calves. He was due back by noon. The clock on the mantel, his one luxury, brought from Boise, ticked toward 3, then 4. Elara didn't wait idle. She stoked the hearth until flames roared defiance against the cold. She boiled pine needle tea for scurvy, marrow broth from the last elk haunch. She melted snow for water, kept the lamp trimmed. Her ears strained for boots on the porch. Darkness came early. The wind shrieked banshee loud. Snow sealed the windows into blind white eyes. Near midnight the door burst open. Silas staggered in, a ghost of ice. His beard was frozen solid, eyes glazed, body shaking uncontrollably. In his arms he cradled a blood-soaked bundle, a young elk calf, half frozen, leg broken in a drift. He'd found it bawling, carried it miles rather than leave it to die. He collapsed by the hearth. The calf lowed weakly. Elara moved without hesitation. She cut the frozen wool from his back with her knife, peeled away layers stiff as boards. His skin was blue-white, hands unresponsive. She stripped to her chemise, pressed her warm body against his, rubbing circulation back into limbs that felt like stone. She whispered fierce words, "Stay with me, Silas. The storm don't win tonight," while forcing sips of broth between his cracked lips. All night she fought. She built the fire high, wrapped him in every blanket, massaged his fingers until feeling returned in painful waves. The calf she splinted with kindling and rags, fed it milk from a rag teat. When Silas's breathing steadied near dawn, she wept silently, relief mixing with exhaustion. The sun broke over the jagged peaks, weak but persistent. 10 feet of snow buried the world in pristine white. The cabin was an island in a frozen sea. Silas stirred. His eyes cleared. He looked at Elara, hair wild, face smudged with soot, hands raw, and saw something new. Not a bartered girl. Not a burden. A woman who had stood guard over his life when death came knocking. He reached out, trembling fingers brushing her cheek. "The mountains tried to take me," he rasped. "Forgot I belonged to a woman stronger than any storm." Tears tracked down her face. She leaned into his touch. In that quiet moment, amid the ruins of terror, he spoke the word that changed everything. Wife. Not a question. A vow. Spring came late that year, but it came fierce. Silas and Elara worked side by side. He taught her to shoot the old Sharps rifle, how to read tracks in mud. She taught him patience, how to laugh at small things, a calf learning to walk again, the first green shoots pushing through snowmelt. They rebuilt the corrals stronger. Silas filed for a homestead claim in both names, unusual, but the land agent in Boise didn't argue with a man who looked like he'd stared down winter itself. Elara's leg still ached, but she walked taller, the limp a mark of survival, not shame. Wolves came again in summer, bolder after the hard winter. One night a big gray tried the sheep pen. Silas wounded it, Elara finished it with the rifle, steady aim despite the recoil. He looked at her with pride. "My queen of the high country." Neighbors, few and far between, heard the story. The Voss girl, sold as useless, now ran a thriving spread with a mountain man who called her wife in earnest. Some whispered scandal, most just nodded. The frontier judged by deeds, not bloodlines. Years passed. The cabin grew, another room, a proper porch. Children came, a boy with Silas's dark eyes, a girl who walked straight and true. Elara taught them to read by firelight, Silas taught them the land's secrets. One winter evening, old and gray, Silas sat by the same hearth. Elara beside him, hand in his. "Remember the storm?" he asked. "Every day," she said. "You saved me. You gave me a home." He squeezed her hand. More than that. You gave me a life worth the fight. Outside, the Oahe winds moaned soft through the pines. Inside, the fire crackled warm. The word wife had long since become cornerstone, stronger than cedar logs, deeper than any vein of silver. The stone the builders rejected had become the heart of it all. And in the high country, where winters still tried to break the unwary, their story endured, proof that love, forged in silence and storm, could outlast even the mountains themselves.